The Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest in the world, and we just happen to live in them. One thing we can tell you, there are ghosts in the mountains.
Good evening, beast lovers, and welcome to another episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. I am your host, as always, Caleb Hanks, and I would be mauled and ravaged by wild beasts if I did not have my trusty companion cohort and beautiful, amazing, badass researcher, the DCB himself, Dr. Captain Austin Burgess. Brother! See you in another life, brother. How the hell are you tonight?
I am doing quite well tonight. How about you?
I'm feeling very sprightly because I know that the winter solstice has come to a close and the Yunwi Junsti are out there just living it up.
Yeah, I could tell by all the pollen just accumulating in the back of my throat and nasal right now.
Little known fact, they love the stuff.
Probably so.
Probably
It's
so.
like cocaine to them.
Yunwi Junsti cocaine. Boy, you know what? We're not going to start like a Black Rifle Coffee Company thing. Let's start a Junsti cocaine on the side. Well, I feel like I've snorted a little bit of Yunwi Junsti cocaine because the spring always makes me excited. But dude, tonight I'm no shit super pumped to talk about this because this has actually been a phenomenon that has just fascinated me for years. Tonight we're talking about strange beasts. This could go anywhere, but Austin, I think we know where it's going.
Yeah. This is one you suggested. So was this particular incident something that you've known about for a long time, or?
Not at all.
Okay.
And it's, as the title has told you, is the Beast of Bladenboro. And this was not one that was on my radar, but the more that I was looking into it, well, this shit's been on my radar for a minute.
Okay.
And I'm excited to hear what you have to bring to the table because I've got some fables, dude.
Yeah.
I've got some shit new shit has come to light, man.
I knew you had some lore on this side of the mysterious feline beasts of North Carolina.
On this side of the equator.
Yeah. But yeah, this is, I think I'd known about the story for a little bit. It's in that North Carolina Legends book that I have, and it was also in the North Carolina Cryptids and Monsters book. So I'd seen it a few times, like mentioned when I'm skimming through the chapters. I'd probably read over the general synopsis of it.
How old is that book?
The North Carolina Legends one?
Yeah.
That's probably like one of the oldest ones. I mean, it's definitely been reprinted a few times, but I think I got it at like Mount Mitchell or one of those like kind of park areas that is just like had it in their little gift shop there, and that was the only one that kind of had some sort of spooky flair to it.
Yeah, so maybe like 70s-ish?
It was probably written, and probably a lot of these stories were gathered and accumulated around that time, but I'm sure that I've got some reprint of it from after the 2000s, obviously.
Well, that's interesting that the initial print of it goes back that far, and they're talking about this, these beast creatures around here, because it's
exactly.
like, dude, I mean... Well, anyway, we can get into this whole thing. Let's just dive straight in because there's a lot of, in my opinion, supplemental information that would potentially augment the possibility of what they're talking about down there.
And one thing before we do dive in, I think I do want to put a bit of a disclaimer trigger warning on this because this one does involve some pretty graphic, unexplained animal death or mutilations. I don't think it's any more graphic than some of the subject material in the Snippy episode, but fair warning, the story does involve quite a few dogs. And it's not that I don't care about like horses or cattle or anything like that, but I think the subject material just like hits a little harder when it's a household pet, especially like a dog.
If you're like my wife, you might not want to listen to this one.
Yes. Sorry, Adriana. So this is not my favorite subject material on some of this side of it, but just consider yourself warned that that's going to be pretty prevalent throughout the story here.
But it is a cautionary tale because in the event that this said beast is still roaming around these parts, maybe you will build a metal reinforced igloo for your pets.
Yeah, there you go. And I do want to take the opportunity while we're on the subject of UAD, unexplained animal death, and our girl Snippy. I think it's a good time to announce to our listeners that Caleb and I will actually be making a little road trip this summer.
Yeah.
After making the Snippy episode last summer, I guess it was, we actually connected with Carrie King, who is the
guitar player in Slayer.
Amongst other things, different Carrie King. But this Carrie King is actually the great nephew of Nellie, who was the original owner of Snippy. And he organized this Snippy convention that happens out on the King family orbit in the San Luis Valley, like where the original Snippy incident took place. So Caleb and I are actually going to be on site interviewing some of the speakers that'll be presenting at the event. And that will be premiering on the One Spark network, I believe. But we'll actually have some of that behind the scenes audio that we could share with y'all. And I don't know exactly who we're going to be speaking with yet, but the list of the presenters is pretty top tier. So more to come on that very soon.
I could not be more excited knowing some of the people that are going to be out there. And also, hey, our first con is a podcast. We're a real boy now.
There you go, right?
Just like Say Anything.
Exactly.
The punk band. Sorry, deep cut, we're old punk rockers. Moving forward.
So back to these mountains, or not really, at least North Carolina, because quite honestly, I really had no idea where Bladenboro was located until we started diving into this.
And wouldn't you know it?
It's pretty close to another interesting creature topic episode we had. I knew, the article you sent me on this initially, it was from like an Asheville-based website, so I was kind of thinking it was going to be something closer to Western North Carolina, but I couldn't have been more wrong because Bladenboro is actually out towards the coast. It's pretty near the town of Curry, North Carolina.
Yeah. And what's the other one that starts with an L right there that had the big UFO flap back in the 60s?
Oh, Lumberton.
Lumberton.
Yeah, so I guess if you're looking at a map, it's kind of like somewhat between Fayetteville and Wilmington when you're kind of looking at the bigger towns on there. So it's more out towards the coast, but it's not quite exactly on coastal land.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty rural.
Thought that was weird because, again, you have this crazy story about the rake of Curry, North Carolina, and a weird potential bleeding from the head Civil War ghost seen moments before this, and then, let's throw a beast that's been historically talked about for a long time in the mix.
Yeah, and I mean, I imagine this region is like pretty heavy in the swamplands. While it's not quite the coast, like the swamps are getting thicker and thicker as you're getting out there. So
it's getting hotter and hotter, and it's getting close to that Everglade style thing where, again, anyway.
It seems prime breeding ground for strange creatures, I suppose.
Strange creatures no sane God would allow.
So this story actually takes place back in 1953. December 29th of 1953 is when it really starts to kick off. So really, we talked about Snippy and that incident being the first unexplained animal death, but this actually predates it. So I think just without the UFO involvement this time around. At least I think so.
Right.
But that night on December 29th of 1953, about 8 miles outside of Bladenboro, hadn't quite hit the Bladenboro town yet, but there's this town known as Clarkton, and witnesses reported that they heard their dogs just making a bunch of racket. And when they went out to check, they saw this sleek black creature. They claimed to be about 5 feet long. And I think they caught it just in time to scare it off because there's conflicting reports on this, but pretty much everything that I found from a newspaper sense claims that they only saw the creature that night. It didn't claim any victims,
right?
At least when it was first spotted. But then, a few days later, on New Year's Eve, the Bladenboro police chief, Ray Flores, was called out to the farm of an individual named Woody Storm, and Storm reported that 2 of his dogs had been killed by something large, and the poor dogs' bodies had actually been completely drained of blood. Some reports go a little more gruesome in the details, with some of those details including the skulls being crushed.
Yeah.
Which is pretty gruesome, but that's pretty significant. That kind of shows you the just weight, force, and power that whatever caused this must have had.
When you say completely drained of blood, we're not talking about with like the surgical precision that they talked about when they were reporting what had happened to the body of Snippy, right?
That's kind of the details that they allude to, honestly. It's almost like that's where the kind of like vampire comparisons kind of come into play with this, with them saying that for all, purposes on this, sure, there could be traces of blood found, but there wasn't, blood running through the veins at the time.
Now, that's pretty wacky, dude.
That's pretty wacky, too, to go on top of the skull detail.
Damn.
Yeah. The next day, another 2 dogs were found. Same conditions. Skulls crushed, blood missing. And it's hard to read, hard to think about, but it was reported that one dog was even hard to even recognize after the mutilation.
Good Lord.
So it's not just like some creature gets a hold of your dogs. This is some pretty intense conditions that these animals were being found in.
See, that just sounds like a psychopath to me, like a human. Right off the bat.
Well, I think there are the reports of this creature being spotted alongside with it, but man, it's
that was his familiar.
Yeah, right. So more reports started coming in. Someone named DG Pate said that he watched from his service station. So I guess he was some sort of on duty, whether he was an officer, whether he was just security guard somewhere. I don't really know. It just mentions he was a service station. But he claims to have watched as a dog was attacked by a large creature and then dragged into the woods. So that does kind of put the beast element in play into this.
Yeah. He's witnessing this actually happen. So at this point, are you not wanting to describe what it looks like, or did he even say what he saw?
It kind of gets into it a little more as I go down on these details. The more this thing kind of trickles out around the small town, the more the details start to kind of build. And I kind of want to tell it that way because I think it builds in a way that almost shows how the lore develops around this.
Let's do that.
So a few days later, law enforcement officers were confused because they read the results of the autopsy, and this is where it comes into play. The autopsy confirmed that the dog's body, or the dog's blood, truly had been drained from its body, and they used the comparison vampire style.
Now, this shit I did not know.
The autopsy report makes it an interesting element. Now, I couldn't find a copy of that autopsy report. That's probably not public record. But that was a common element that came into play in a lot of the tellings of the story, whether that's, just become a piece of urban legend folklore or whether that was truly the case that an autopsy was performed on this. I would think in an incident like this, as strange as the circumstances were, an autopsy would definitely be justified.
I mean, when you're talking about like similar cryptid, calling cards, the first thing that comes to mind is Chupacabra.
Yeah.
But never once when they're talking about Chupacabra, and I'm talking about alien reptilian Chupacabra, not mangy dog Chupacabra.
Yeah.
They never talk about a crushed skull.
Yeah.
They talk about the little incisions.
Yep.
Vampire style.
Yeah, exactly. And
the blood missing.
The blood missing, exactly. So after this, Chief Forays just received a ton of reports flooding in, dogs being attacked. All across the county. It didn't seem like there was one certain hot spot that this thing was just kind of pulling from. It seemed like this, whatever it was hitting all areas around the perimeter of the county. And this is when people start calling in with these reports that the descriptions start to come in. People say they saw an animal. Some described it as a bear. Some described it like a panther. There were some descriptions that it was 3 feet long, 20 inches high, with a long tail and a cat's face. Other reports had the creature, I guess these weren't more of a sighting report. These were more that they heard the creature, and they say that the creature's scream coming from the swamps near the town sounded like a woman with a knife struck in her back.
Right.
Pretty distinguishable sound there, like you hear wildcat cries. Not everyone's heard a bobcat, but if you hear a bobcat,
yeah, it sounds like a woman screaming.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, I got to say, the 3 feet height.
I know that the 3 feet height is an interesting detail. Very interesting, specific detail for sure. So one man claimed that he actually tracked the beast for a mile, but never got a clear shot at it. So he was sitting there able to follow it, trying to, allegedly, I guess he was a hunter, if he's tracking that far, trying to, be the town hero, but he was unable to get that clear shot. But on the night of January 3rd, Police Chief Flores searched for the creature with dogs, took them out to perform the full search of the swampy woods area where they'd been reports from. But reportedly, these dogs would not follow the trail whatsoever. Like the dogs were freaked out by whatever they were picking up scent of.
Yeah. All right. Pheromone action, I'm assuming.
Potentially. And I mean, you got to think like this thing seems to be targeting a very specific type of creature. Like there were some other reports that come in later of some farm animals being found, but a lot of the reports were dogs. So very kind of interesting detail on that.
Well, it's kind of strange because when you think about most like large predators like coyotes and things, they're going to go for chickens.
Yeah.
It's the smaller livestock.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm assuming there was probably a decent amount of chickens around.
It's a farming community. Yeah, exactly.
So it's weird that it was going after something big.
Yeah. So that is an interesting detail, I thought, as well. But days go by and locals start reporting, like I said, just more grisly finds. There were a few hogs, there were a few chickens, goats, and I believe one cow was found mutilated, is what it claims. Doesn't go into the full details on that, but kind of safe to assume with that same time frame of everything else going on that this was a similar incident. And to add further detail to that, they all seem to have the blood sucked out of them as well.
That part is baffling me.
That part really is. It's playing into so much of the Chupacabra lore, but it seems like this has a few other elements in it that can't just be written off like that.
Yeah, I mean, I used to joke on Micah's show back in the day that I was the resident chupacabrologist, but I actually don't. I don't know the key information I would need right now, which is like I don't know in relation when the chupacabra phenomenon, the why they called it chupacabra, which translates to goat sucker, because it was doing this thing where it was sucking the blood out. I don't know when it started.
Well, I would say because the chupacabra thing kind of gets, I don't want to say it's exclusive to the UFO lore, but I think that's tied up with a lot of it. These chupacabra creatures are coming from spaceships.
Oh yeah.
So you would almost have to think that it's after the kind of like big, flaps of like the 60s, 70s, but who knows?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
At least 70s.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to do a chupacabra episode.
Oh, please.
They're in the mountains for sure.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, they might be after this shit.
So anyways, later, I guess that following day after the police dogs wouldn't follow the trail, there were about 6 kind of younger men that were kind of going out on their own search of this thing. They took their own dogs, and on the night, I think they went out with the chief, kind of doing their own hunt. They somehow got their dogs to follow the trail when the police dogs wouldn't. But there were people that kind of caught wind of this. I think they did their own search that night. Nothing really materialized, but talk spreads through small towns like this, and especially like these communities with these hunters that are looking for, kind of an elusive creature like this. I don't know how big the idea of like a cryptid or like an undiscovered creature really was at the time of this, but you have to imagine there's some sort of like thrill in the hunt of something like this. Not only is there something terrorizing the town, this could be something completely undiscovered that they're kind of going after.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that really was probably going through their head, because I think that a vast majority of the cryptid craze kind of starts in the 60s with the Patterson-Gimlin film and things like that.
Yeah, fair.
But talking about like just the thrill of the hunt, I mean, dude, North Carolina, God almighty, you want to talk about like hunting enthusiasts. There was probably a bunch of people who were like, dude, this sounds very fun.
Yeah.
Let's find this thing and kill it. Not to mention it's affecting their community.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people start traveling from all over. There's people coming in from Wilmington that hear about this, that are driving down to this little farming community of Bladenboro.
I guess that's not that far, but still.
But still, yeah. I mean, for the time, you got to think that word travels, but there's no internet. There's no cell phones, no anything like that. So for it to reach, what is a significantly bigger town of, a good probably hour away, and people to come in to join the hunt for this, that's fairly significant. But then on January 5th, the stakes get a little higher. I won't say they get a little higher to, I don't want to put down anything that they've attacked before, but this is when the beast reportedly attacked a woman.
Okay.
And I guess she'd went to kind of go check off. She'd heard her dogs whimpering and kind of running off. So she went to check on them. And that's when the beast ran after her. And she screamed and ran, and her husband came out of the house and was able to basically shout and raise enough racket to chase the beast off himself. And outside of her home, tracks were left in the dirt road, and she claimed they were bigger than a silver dollar, which still isn't that big when you're thinking about the grand scheme of skulls being crushed and things like that.
Well, how much bigger than a silver dollar?
Yeah, that's true. But you think you would use something like, a larger,
baseball.
Larger than a baseball, larger than a basketball.
A tea saucer. Well, obviously the husband had a good look at this thing.
It seems that he did. There's really no description given other than just the dark, shadowy creature that he chased off.
Okay, so this was at night.
Yeah, it was at night.
Okay, well that does.
Yeah. Changes some things on that. So at this point, word is definitely out. Like it has become talk of the town. People are freaked, but at the same time, the mayor of the town, Woodrow Fussell, he also operated the town theater, and he reportedly went down to Charlotte, drove all the way there to rent a film for the theater, and it was this 1949 film called The Big Cat. And he told an interviewer that he believed that, the creature, whatever was going on, he thought that if nothing else, a little publicity never hurt the town. So he took advantage of the situation and started showing this film, The Big Cat, which is kind of about, I looked it up, it just looks like it's about some sort of mountain lion or cougar. Don't really know the plot line of it, but he started showing it at his local theater. And maybe not in the best taste on that one, considering there's kind of a town-wide emergency going on, but he thought, why not? I bet people want to really immerse themselves in big cat culture.
Is you is or is you ain't my constituents. And also, the only way to comfort a community that's being mauled by some sort of crazy creature is to scare the shit out of them in the films.
Yeah,
Dude, what in the fuck is he thinking?
I don't know why. And this is like part of the lore too that this dude
maybe it's this thing. He's like, they have to, if we're gonna fight the beast, they have to learn how it thinks, and the only way to do that is this movie.
I just picture
I doubt that. Was
yeah,
the case.
that's like Mayor Adam West level or something.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know if old Fussell was operating on that mental wavelength, but who knows?
But hey, consistent with modern government.
Yeah. So that same day, January 6th, when he started showing the film, a young boy named Dalton Norton reported what he called his own big cat. And he said that the cat was making a noise like a baby crying on his porch before leaving that night. So sounds like this thing walked right up to the dude's door, started screaming, and caught the attention of old Dalton, and then just kind of moseyed back off into the night.
Yeah, this thing is obviously some sort of large feline.
That's what everything seems to point towards at this point. And as you know, it's like it builds on this. It's no longer just the talk of the town. Once the newspapers get a hold of this, it explodes.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of these stories you see, like when there's not, a lot of national news going on slow national news days, sometimes stories like this that are just weird enough on the local level catch these national media attention. And then they start making newspapers all across the country. And that's kind of what happened with this. And that's how the creature acquired the name, the Beast of Bladenboro.
Extra, this just in, the Beast of Bladenboro is massacring the country.
Yep, you got it.
Be afraid. We need to make our people even more afraid. Hide your children, hide your wives.
So I mentioned earlier that we're talking about people coming in from Wilmington and all over North Carolina to hunt this creature. Within the span of a few days, after this thing is still in the height of the paranoia in the town, this article is running, hits the local news and breaks in the national news within a few days. So it brings in even more people looking to capture and kill this beast. And it's reported that as many as 800 people came into the little town in one day, all with like shotguns and high-powered rifles and just like, ready to set out and kill this thing.
Dude, what a scene.
But you got to think about it. Nobody really knew what they were hunting. They had very, very brief, very kind of, a lot of speculations going on in these descriptions.
God, I hope they weren't just shooting everything.
Well, that's, I think the legend has it that they were set out. They thought it was some sort of panther creature is what they started describing it as the time. And, even at the time, that wasn't something that was believed to be living in North
Not
Carolina
that far north.
at all. Exactly. But as you can imagine, you put 800 hunters into this small town and send them out through swampland, like thick forested, swampy areas, all looking for the same rough description of a creature in the same rough area. And things kind of started to get dangerous with potential for some hunting accidents with all these hunters crammed into like this fairly small area. Luckily, no hunting accidents occurred, but
any rattlesnake fatality?
I didn't read of anything. You know, there might have been other things. You would think that that would be enough to make headlines, but they had to keep those clear for the beast attacks at the time.
That's wild as hell to me because, man, like when you get out into some of those swampy ass territories down near the coast, like you want to talk about some snaky shit, especially back before a lot of that was inhabited. Good God.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it went on for about 2 days with this group. I mean, I've seen 800. Some people even reported up to 1,000 people gathered to hunt this creature.
Good Lord.
And at this point, Mayor Fusel just had to call off the hunt unless another obvious kill was found or that there was some sort of legitimate sighting of the creature, because this hunt for the creature in such a small land couldn't sustain without some sort of accident occurring. It was just inevitable at that point.
Yeah. Also, where the hell were these people staying? Was KOA a thing at that point?
I don't know. That doesn't really go into it. Maybe they all just set up camp. Who knows? That doesn't.
There might have been independent people that were like, sure, you can camp on my my field. I don't give a shit.
KOA was born here.
Let's kill the thing. Maybe it was.
The mayor basically cited that these large hunting parties are just too large for safety. We've got to shut this down. And the sheriff even reported that he'd received a telegram from the Humane Society in, here we get our mention, Asheville, North Carolina, protesting their tactics using dogs to bait the creature.
You know, my dad likes to hunt, and I've been on a couple of hunts with him and famed RIP Mark Pruitt band fiddler Arvel Friedman. He used to have these packs of hound dogs. They would just go rabbit hunting, and I would watch these little dudes work. Number one, wow, they are cute. Number two, God, they're good at what they do. So, yeah, you get enough hound dogs out, you figure you're going to catch the scent of these damn things.
Our neighbor actually has a really cute hound dog, super, super big, sweet dog.
Yeah.
And he was basically given to them because he was returned by his owners because he would track the creatures, but he just tried to play with them after that.
Aw, dude, that is so sweet.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Shout out Duke. So anyways, the hunt is called off unless there's a legitimate threat or another sighting that happens. And well, on January 11th, there were 2 cars opposite end of the road, and they both were coming, and they stopped for an animal that they both reported similar description. 4 feet long, and one of the men in the cars was quoted as saying the animal had runty-looking ears and was brownish and tabby.
There you go.
And these descriptions are starting to sort of paint a little bit of a picture here. And then on January 13th, a man named Luther Davis, who was a local farmer, he found a bobcat struggling in his steel trap out in this part of town known as the Big Swamp. It was 4 miles from Bladenboro, but still close enough to be considered. I guess it's the same county and everything.
Yeah.
So Luther took it on himself to exterminate the bobcat, thinking that this was indeed the beast that had been terrorizing the town. And Mayor Fusel, he told newspapers after the bobcat was shown, he told newspapers that the Beast of Bladenboro had been found and killed. And Fusel and Chief Forrest, actually, this part's really stupid. They hung it up on a flagpole in the center of town and posted a sign underneath it saying, "This is the Beast of Bladenboro."
Couple things don't add up for me with this.
No, not at all. That little bobcat's crushing skulls.
Well, that's the biggest thing. Number one, what a grotesque display of just we killed this thing.
That's
Number two, you telling me this entire community had never experienced a bobcat?
Yeah, no shit, right? Like, you're talking about the cries of this thing.
You're talking about something that can crush a dog's skull.
And vampire style drain their blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you're talking down to your audience, Mayor. The community knows what a fucking bobcat looks like and is capable of.
Well, everything you just said is actually how the community basically responded to that.
Boom.
They're like, bullshit.
Boom.
So they're basically left unsatisfied by this solution that he has for everything. He wants the hype to be over. He wants the hysteria to die down his town. He wants the 800 hunters to go the fuck home.
Yeah, and he wants to look like we got him.
Yeah, we got him.
How many times you seen that shit happen?
Yep, exactly. So That same day, after the paper hits the town, Beast of Bladenboro killed, whatever, someone named Bruce Sorrells from a town not too far over, I guess he was leaving Bladenboro on his way back home, and he claims that he hit a cat with his vehicle, and according to reports, it was spotted like a leopard, about 20 to 24 inches high and weighed between 75 and 90 pounds. And he claims that he then took the cat home with him. Don't know if he took it to a vet, but
I've been living with Petunia ever since.
Yeah. And these conflicting reports kind of start to come in because a third man, he's a professional hunter and guide, Barry Lewis. He's credited in some newspapers as having killed the animal, and I guess he kind of had his own spin on the story on him finding his own cat, separate to this bobcat, separate to this weird leopard that was hit and then taken back to this guy's home. Anyways, he was credited in the news reports saying that he actually killed the cat, and that the cat that was the one that the mayor was hanging and sending to the press was not the true beast. And Lewis was reported as hunting in a different part of Bladen County when he found the true beast himself. So, as you could see, everyone wants their slice of fame and is starting to say that they found whatever it is.
Song as old as time. Beauty and the Beast of Bladenboro. God damn it, I'm so sorry. Austin, I know you're trying to do legitimate research, and I just come in here and just shit all over it.
So going back to these descriptions, it's kind of still unclear what exactly this thing was, because you have this report of this obviously larger leopard that seems a little bit more of a likely target as opposed to these bobcats that were found. I think there was even another report about one of them potentially being an ocelot that had escaped from some sort of like circus or zoo that was in the area.
I'm trying to think about what a damn ocelot is.
It's
don't they have like the black and white on the ears?
Yeah.
And they stick up real high?
Yeah, and then they have the spots very similar to the leopard.
Okay.
But they're not quite the size of what you would think of as a full like big cat style.
Right. Because okay, let's talk for just a second about your typical big cats, because we're pretty freaking sure obviously this is what it is, except for the fact that it's seemingly a vampire.
Well, I mean, there's other reports. Some people, the bear description was thrown around. So like, but you know, the things we're talking about, like the baby crying, the comparisons to the woman screaming.
Yeah, bears don't sound like that.
It certainly points back to it. But yeah, there are a lot of kind of just like conflicting descriptions, but a lot of them really kind of chase back to the same description, it being about 20 inches high, had a long tail. The color of it was dark, had a face exactly like a cat, but, you know, not quite. They've never seen a cat quite that big is what the descriptions were saying. So
right.
I think, you know, a lot of the reports are describing the Beast of Bladenboro as feline, but they just can't agree on that one species that it happens to be.
Yeah, and like obviously the most convoluting factor is the fact that, well, we don't have those that far north.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Everglades of Florida, there are I guess they're called the Florida panther.
Yeah, that's a
But they are essentially cougars, are they not?
They are. I think one thing that maybe is a little bit unclear, a panther is not a distinct species.
Right, okay.
So yeah,
what's up with that shit? Because they talk about the Florida panther, but the Florida panther does seem to have spots like a leopard, but they're not as pronounced as the leopard, and it's almost like you can only see that they have the spots in certain lighting. But overall, the description of what that particular animal is going to look like is like a beige kind of cougar looking.
Yeah, it very much just looks like a cougar. Yeah, exactly. Kind of like a mountain lion, only not in the mountains.
But there has been, and just to throw this into the mix here, because it's definitely worth talking about, there have been a lot of reports of dark-colored cougars.
Yeah.
None of this has been scientifically proven. They've never caught one. They've never taken samples. They might have pictures, but nobody's ever caught one of there being a dark panther. But they have talked about these things being as far north as Canada, dude.
Yeah, and since I've lived here, I'm sure you've heard it since you've been growing up. Like, there's almost like this local lore, the rumors of there are these true what people call panthers that exist somewhere deep in the woods here in Western North Carolina.
I'm going to talk a little bit at the end of the episode
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
because I've got some wild information
Yeah, I'll
to give.
I'll pump back to you on that very shortly here because if there's even parts like are you familiar with a little area called Panthertown Valley? It's kind of between like Rosman and Cullowhee.
Yeah, I have heard of that.
Great hiking out there. Anyways, that's kind of like what ties into a lot of these legends with people like, oh yeah, there's definitely the panther creatures you think about used to exist out there. They might still be hidden deep in those woods.
I mean, don't you think that that's interesting that they would go as far as to name a small community that?
Well,
and I know that you have heard, but I know that you have heard of reports of these damn things.
I have, but I will say the term panther in this context is actually referring to just the eastern cougar. Like the catamount is another word for it. Like the panther and the catamount are both non-descriptive species or non-descriptive terms to describe what are basically mountain cats.
Well, I think that when I say, because obviously you do have like larger mountain cats for sure. But what I'm talking about, and maybe this is just because I'm so comfortable with it, talking about like kind of through the paranormal lens, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm talking about specifically reports of black cats.
Yeah, and these that I'm talking about that this area is named after are not black.
Right.
So yeah, when people hear the word panther, they automatically kind of go to these big black wildcats in their mind. But those aren't cougars or mountain lions. The black panthers that like people commonly think of that are actually they're melanistic jaguars and leopards.
Right. That's a very good distinction to make, to talk about like a panther is not a species.
Yes, exactly. It's like a descriptor. Yeah. Well, the term panther, like it doesn't have to be black. Like you're talking about the Florida panther. It just describes, it's a word used to describe a type of big cat. But so many people hear the term panther and they think the pitch black, the big, the ones you see in like Jungle Book and stuff like that. Yeah. But those are just pigmented, melanistic jaguars and leopards. And those are the only two species that it's known to occur in, that melanistic trait of them being able to be all black.
Right.
So interesting distinction on that because neither of those species aren't exactly known to exist in North Carolina. But I did a little digging on this because I guess in the early 18th century, there was this explorer named John Lawson. And he documented seeing a species that he described as a tiger with a Y, is how he spelled it. And it was some sort of large cat that was completely separate than the cougar because he also documented the cougar in his book. And he and he documented this as far north as North Carolina. So, I mean, I guess it is possible that some sort of other tiger, leopard, jaguar type cat could have existed here at some point, according to John Lawson. According to scientists and naturalists and forest specialists, they will tell me I'm completely wrong on that.
Well, look at the existing big cat species that we have on planet Earth right now and how hard it is for those species to keep procreating and to keep existing.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, look at the snow leopards. Like, dude, I don't even know what the population is on those things, but I know it's incredibly scarce.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that just might be something about them. It's like pandas. They're very stingy. You can put them in a cage.
He's just not the right one.
Yeah. He's the only one in existence. I don't know. We just don't really connect.
Oh, that's good.
But again, it's just like, I think it's just like maybe a trait of large cats in general that they're really, really, really picky about mates. And so it's really hard for them to proliferate. So
interesting.
I don't think that it's impossible for, I don't know, all kinds of different variants of these things to have existed back before we started settling the shit out of the Americas.
Yeah. But I will note, he just described it as some sort of tiger. So he didn't even indicate that this thing was black at all. I'm just saying that it's possible some sort of leopard, tiger, maybe like creature, because these are very early documentations. There wasn't defined characteristics of all these things at the time. So potential that it could have been there. Potential that a melanistic trait could have eventually developed if there was some sort of offspring. Yes, but it's very gets more minute on the possibilities as you kind of work through it.
Sure.
But again, that lore of the Black Panther just exists around here. And I always kind of thought that's how the Carolina Panthers got their name.
Well, that's another freaking thing. Because when you look at the Carolina Panthers logo, what color is it?
It's black.
Yeah.
with a little blue border, blue highlights through it. But
and I know that it's not a very definitive thing, but it is kind of interesting.
it is weird because I actually looked into this because I was like, this has to be how they got their name. This lore has to tie into it. And it really wasn't mentioned anywhere in the story on how they got their name.
Well, why did they?
So the official story is when it came time to choose the name for the team, discussions never left the Richardson family, who Jerry Richardson was like the initial owner of the Panthers. So instead of doing like a fan poll, like a lot of teams do when they're starting off and trying to decide on a mascot, the chosen team president, Mark Richardson, who was the son of the owner, he says, "It's a name our family thought signifies what we thought a team should be: powerful, sleek, and strong." And that's basically what they went with. And Mark said that he was also the one responsible for choosing the black and blue color scheme.
And then he took the reporter into a closed skiff and he said, "But to be honest with you, it was that goddamn Beast of Bladenboro that ate my grandfather."
That would have been so much cooler. But apparently this name was kind of controversial at first because the NFL worried that the Panthers nickname with the black color scheme would appeal to what they describe as quote unquote street gangs and could potentially reflect poorly on the NFL. They even sent the NFL as an organization, apparently sent a letter to the Richardson family in 1993 telling them this and suggested that they go with the name Rhinos instead.
All right. I mean, I understand the connotation with the Black Panthers organization.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
At least when the team arises, how it's like, is this political?
Yeah, yeah.
Which, whatever. You know, who knows? I think the name kicks ass.
Yeah, no. Too bad the team is...
Yeah, we've never really done a lot. But it's never pissed me off too much. I grew up in a high school where, dude, our team was the worst. We never won shit. So I was like, well, it's not new to me.
I'm a Broncos fan, and they beat the Panthers in their most recent Super Bowl. So that was awkward, but, you know, we'll digress from that.
That's the most sports you'll ever hear on this podcast.
So, you know, like I said, I've heard these rumors for years, and I actually did see what I thought was kind of a pretty convincing trail cam photo about a year ago, but someone pointed out to me that it was most likely just capturing the image of what is just a typical black house cat at this weird angle that make it look much bigger, but
sure,
in reality, probably wasn't a panther roaming the woods of Western North Carolina. But you've got some interesting stories.
So I say at the beginning of every single episode that I'm very excited about what we're talking about, and I genuinely am, but this one in particular has been something that has fascinated me for a very long time because I just kept hearing reports of it. It's one thing for somebody to be out in Chimney Rock and say, "I saw a Sasquatch." And I'm like, okay, well, what exactly did you see? What I think is really, really interesting about this entire thing, number one, is the possibility of not just big cats, you know, that's all good and well. And, you know, okay. And just to make sure that I understand this, cougars, the brown cougar that will just rip your face off in Red Dead Redemption 2, those have been historically around these parts, albeit rare.
Yes, but to this day, and even what I think was in the 50s in the time of this story taking place, I think they were believed to be extinct in this particular area.
Okay, that's fine. That's all I needed to know. The thing that I've always found weird were the ongoing reports of, like I was talking about, black panthers in this area.
Yeah.
I would happen to see on Reddit every once in a while people that would just be like, "Hey, I think I saw a black panther."
Mm-hmm.
And oddly enough, I tried to scour the internet this week and find some of the reports that I found. And then I found that there was like a hell of a lot more Reddit threads about this than I even realized.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah, I figured you would have gone through and looked, but there's a shit ton, which is, well, not exactly hurting the case.
Yeah,
so,
where there's smoke, there's fire.
Well, exactly. So again, I found, I think even as recent as last year, somebody had written on Reddit and they were like, "I think I saw a black panther." And I believe that the report was that it was in the Fairview Girton area.
Mm-hmm.
And the comments just ripped them apart, man. And I felt kind of bad for these people because it wasn't even, I mean, you know, most of the time, it's not people being overtly like mean or rude. Maybe to me, they're just being a little a little too matter of fact. They're like, just, it's impossible. There's no way. And I guess if you, I don't know, have looked into this stuff or you know the wildlife around the area, then maybe it does seem very, very, very implausible to you. But two things. Number one, well, three things. Number one of these was not long ago. I believe it was our episode about the Bigfoot. I like to call it the Bigfoot flap in Marion. Why don't we call it the Bigfoot flap?
In
I'm sorry, not Marion. Madison County.
Madison, there it is.
And we got onto the subject talking about they had a little zoo out there.
Yeah.
And you went there.
Yeah.
And they had kangaroo just hanging out.
Yep.
In freaking Madison County.
Got to pet one.
And then they ran us into trouble with some, licensing issues about the kinds of animals that you can actually keep. Well, there's one thing. Okay, the point I'm obviously trying to make is that in certain instances, there's people that just like to get exotic creatures. One person that comes to my mind is Joe Exotic. He had a lot of animals. I'm not saying that he's responsible for the Beast of Bladenboro, but here's what I'm saying.
The Beast of Bladenboro is responsible for Joe Exotic.
Maybe he was the beast. I kept eating all these dogs and it wasn't enough. I had to own tigers. But you might think if you lived in rural Ohio that you would not look out your window and see a male lion walking through your field. However, multiple times people did. And it wasn't there was this ghost lion walking out because we used to be Pangea. No, it was that an exotic animal collector had all these frickin' big cats that he would keep on his property, and they would escape frequently because this idiot, number one, didn't know how to keep them caged in, and number two, didn't put the money on the proper security to keep them caged. Also, number three, why the fuck do you need all these lions?
Yeah, I would think the licensing process for owning big cats has gotten stricter in the more modern age. Back in the 50s, this is probably still a hobby of many people. I mean, circuses still existed back then, right? Obviously.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, dude, even as early as the early 2000s, it seemed like the licenses to get these kinds of creatures was not that hard to do. Or people just didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Or they would forge the papers because they just wanted the fucking animals.
Yeah. I think what I'm kind of getting at is like in today's modern world, if something like this happens, it's easy to go and trace who is a registered owner of big cats in your area. Whereas like,
right. Back in the day when it was all on paper, what are you going to do? Like you have to like call in to some place and like, get them to mail you. Yeah, dude, that's a hard thing to do, especially back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have printers back in the day, so they have to like write you a certificate that's a copy from a book or something. I don't know. I'm assuming. So the last point that I'm going to make, to me, I'm not going to call it the smoking gun, but good Lord, if there was ever going to be anything close to it, this would be it. So I kept hearing through the grapevine, and then I swear to God, I was seeing posts on Reddit every, year or two where people were saying, I'm in the Fairview Girton area, and I think I saw a black panther. Well, one night, we used to play out in Hendersonville at the Southern Appalachian Brewery all the time. We still do every once in a while, my brother and I. And one night, we're talking to a friend out there, and they said to us, well, I grew up out there in Fairview around, Fairview, Girton area. And they were like, there was a person up there that used to have black panthers and a big thing. They just loved keeping exotic pets. But the story told was that they kept black panthers up there in Girton.
Melanated jaguars, essentially.
Yes,
yeah.
jaguars. And they got out. And then a couple of years later, I mean, hell, maybe 10, 15 years after this, because apparently the owner of these jaguars died. And again, I have to get Micah to confirm this stuff, but either way, these things, the rumor is, these things just get out. All right? So a couple years later, there's a guy that says, I saw a black panther and two little black panther cubs walking along with it. Right out there in Girton, North Carolina. So what I'm trying to say is that if a cougar can live in the conditions that you have here in Western North Carolina, why in the hell, if a jaguar was not just dropped in the middle of it, albeit the registration papers being legit or not, if you just drop a jaguar, do you think it could probably survive here.
I mean, I'd assume it might not thrive. There's certain climates that they probably do better in.
Sure.
But survive and thrive are different things entirely.
Exactly. If you think about the crazy conditions that a vast majority of big cats in general that live out in the wild have to deal with, and the scarcity of food, if you're a big cat that gets dropped in the middle of western North Carolina and you are at a shortage for livestock, especially somewhere out like Fairview where you have all this farmland. Now, here's one thing I don't know. I don't know how often you have mutilated chickens or turkeys. I know there's a turkey farm out there.
Yeah.
Obviously a shit ton of cows and stuff like that. But here's the other thing. If any of your livestock starts disappearing or getting eaten, you just blame it on the coyotes. You're not even thinking for a second that there could be potentially a big cat. Here's another thing I'm going to throw at you. I've spent a ton of time out there in Fairview, and I have a lot of friends out there. I knew a guy that told me that he straight up for a summer found a cave out there near Girton and just lived in it for a summer. One of my hippie buddies just lived in this cave he found. So he just found a random cave out there, and it makes sense. I mean, if you look at the geology that's going on.
Could you imagine waking up and there's just a big cat in your face one day?
I mean, dude, you never know. But what I'm saying is, like, I think the habitat lends itself for something like that gets displaced and put into this terrain to be able to completely survive. And if they didn't survive for long, I think they could have easily survived for a 20-year plus span and then maybe just fell off.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, I love that you brought this up because it plays into what we were just talking about, like the fact that these situations can exist for these kind of off-the-record big cat owners, lovers, whatever you want to call them, to bring their creatures in to what is basically kind of a more secluded land where no one's really going to mess with them. No one's going to know they're there unless they get out.
Absolutely.
So
and it's easy to hide something like that up in the backwoods, dude.
Yeah. So like, you know, what you're saying, if that could happen here in the mountains, it could probably happen down somewhere near the swamplands as well, is probably safe to say, to bring it all the way back down to Bladenboro for this full little tangent there. Because, you know, I do think that's a very interesting possibility. But there are some details that just specific to the Beast of Bladenboro case that still make me scratch my head, because big cats, if they're attacking something, they're taking that thing and that's their food source. They're not sitting here draining the blood vampire style and crushing a skull.
That's where the whole thing gets really, really murky.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, I don't think it's impossible that the Everglades, Florida, big cat could, number one, migrate that far north. I don't think that's impossible. I also don't think that it's impossible that one could have been transported. But one thing I was going to bring up, and I know this is like seemingly innocuous, but when you and I were growing up, we never had armadillos in North Carolina.
I've seen multiple pictures within the past year of them.
I saw a dead one across from the Asheville Mall on Tunnel Road.
When was that?
Dude, 4 years ago.
4 years ago? Dang. I've probably seen within the past, I guess, year time frame. I think I've seen at least 2 or 3 different pictures of people that have came across them while hiking.
I've also seen armadillo carcass over the North Carolina line, and this was before the one that I saw on Tunnel Road. I saw one dead across the North Carolina line coming into Highlands, North Carolina from North Georgia, which again is not that crazy to think about because obviously you get down from the Highlands and you go into Georgia, those temperatures are spiking pretty good and they seem to thrive in the warmer climates. But the point that I'm making is that, you know, things have definitely gotten warmer over the years, and the armadillo, they are moving north.
Yeah, clearly.
So given whatever, maybe there was some freak weather patterns, whatever, maybe something got disoriented and a particular wildcat from the Florida Everglades just went, I'm going north, dude.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. It's not probable, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. And one other factor I think we should mention on this is that these mutilations, these killings kind of stopped after this period of the few weeks that it kind of took place over, whether it was, you know, through that span of basically New Year's Eve into the mid-January time frame. And then it seemed to kind of fall off. But then 1 year later, interestingly enough, almost 1 year later, it was December 15th of 1954. Someone on a farm that was out near the hospital in Bladenboro reported that 5 medium-sized pigs and 3 chickens were found dead. The interesting detail was crushed skulls. I guess 3 of the pigs had legs torn apart from their bodies, but strangely enough, no blood was evident, indicating more of this blood draining trait that the Bladenboro beast was known for.
Yeah, that's the blind spot in the whole
that
thing.
really is the blind spot on it. And I guess the next day there was a report that a stray dog was found killed, probably alluded to being the same killer as the day before. But then after this, these reports completely fade out again. So who really knows if those 2 incidents almost a year later could be attributed to the same thing? Kind of seems unlikely, unless it's some creature that only thrives in the winter, which also seems very unlikely.
I would think that if it was a displaced big cat, that because of the temperature drop that it wasn't used to, it was overactive.
Yeah.
It was going to try to find as much food as it could because its body was trying to overcompensate for the cold temperatures.
Yeah, that could be a good way to look at it. There's actually one report more recently. I guess this one comes from 2007. Someone claims that the beast returned to North Carolina, but this time it was in Lexington, North Carolina, which isn't really that close to Bladenboro. So
That's like middle of the state, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a stretch to say that this is the same creature, but they say that there were 60 goats that were found, heads crushed, and not all of them, but some of them contain signs of the blood being drained again. And this was apparently 30 miles away from Greensboro, but then later, a farmer in Greensboro claims that he lost some of his goats in a similar way around that 2007 timeframe. So, odd sensation. Hard to really say it's the same exact creature just because of the distance there, but who's to say the thing can't travel over time or have offspring that have traveled and spread over time. And then in 2008, even more recently, old Monster Quest did an episode on this. Have you seen this one?
No, but I love Monster Quest. You're talking about the OG one?
Yeah, the TV show Monster Quest from 2008. Yeah.
Oh, man, I watched so much of that shit.
So they actually did an episode on this, and they concluded that it was a cougar that had basically kind of had burrowed and secluded away. But they did say that, or their theory, I guess, on the cougar was kind of dismissed because even up to this point, the cougar was believed to be extinct in this part of America, even dating back to the 50s when this Bladenboro incident was happening.
I still don't think that means shit.
Yeah, I think.
They thought the coelacanth was extinct. It's a little harder to find a coelacanth, but then again, his ass keeps popping up.
Yeah, fair enough. Now this part I do think is a little bit telling because in years after, when he was describing the incident, Mayor Fusel did say that, going back to his quote about the movie, well, a little publicity never hurt a small town. I believe that the beast was 10% real and about 90% imagination. So
all of these dogs they imagined that they had their skulls crushed?
Well, that's what I'm kind of wondering here. Like, how much of this actually happened and how many of these details just became part of folklore that were kind of like tied into this to make it a better story?
Well, here's the other side of it too, though. Are you alluding to the idea that this was just a publicity stunt for like an act of tourism, and the actual amount of animal mutilations was exaggerated and not a lot of them actually happened?
I think it's a possibility, yes. I don't really want to be a downer on this too much, but I think with the comments that he was saying about 10% real and 90% imaginative, unless he's just completely trying to like
shit on what the public is saying, and he's trying to be like, there's a lot of people imagining a lot of things out there.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this guy kind of sucks.
He kind of sucks. Yeah, he hangs a freaking bobcat from a pole. Yeah, he fucking sucks. But I don't know. It kind of seems like there's a lot of this that could have been based in some historical fact, but all the details about the blood being completely drained. Like, how is this even scientifically possible?
Yeah, makes no sense.
So, like, that's where I just kind of scratch my head. Yeah, all the literature on this story has that same detail, but, like, where's the, like I alluded to, I couldn't find the autopsy report, and I don't think anything else you'd be able to find would really validate that from a scientific standpoint. So, like, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just kind of scratching my head at the amount of animals that were found with these science-defying injuries that I don't know. Maybe parts of the story were kind of sprinkled in to add some allure to bring it in the town. We already know the guy tried to capitalize by bringing in a freaking big cat movie screening during all of it. So
it kind of depends on how many independent reports you have of this creature from people that are not associated with them.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of your linchpin of it all. But dude, there could have been 3 coyote attacks in a week, and he went, "Oh hell, let's make some shit up about this."
Yeah.
And he had seen this big cat movie. He obviously knows about it.
Yeah, he knew to drive to Charlotte to get that print coffee or whatever.
He's like,
it was.
dude, it's slow as hell around here. Let's drum some shit up. And then next thing he knows, he's got 800 hunters. Providing that account is true.
True. Yeah, exactly.
I bet
that part could be the exaggerated part as well.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like maybe 150 guys show up and there's 800 fucking hunters around. Yeah, there seems. I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't want to be a downer and dismiss all of it because it is just a truly weird, baffling story.
Yeah.
But with him making that comment after him kind of already being suspect for being, wanting to drum up the publicity and wanting to be the face of the hero that captured this thing. I don't know, man. Like maybe there's a little bit stretch to it that's just become cemented in part of the lore. But hey, the lore's stuck. Like this is a source of pride for the town of Bladenboro. Like this is something that is a draw for them. Like they host a Beast Fest annually every year, every October.
Dude.
And it's just a free street festival, kind of like the White Squirrel is in Brevard. They have Beast Fest out in Bladenboro. How cool is that?
Let me just put it to you this way. Don't you kind of wish we had a Mothman?
I mean, yeah, for sure.
I do too. I wish we had a Mothman. I wish we had Mothman.
Just
yes.
yeah, for sure.
Because he's the shit,
right? The Mothman. But it seems like this Beast Fest is something that is not only like a source of pride, like it's actually a good community fundraising effort. I think all the funds and profits received that are collected through this festival, they go back to support just various community projects and initiatives to just improve the overall town and businesses in the area. So kind of cool they have that. And I think since 2018, it says Beast Fest has become one of the fastest growing and largest attended weekend fall festivals in southeastern North Carolina. Conservative estimates put the attendance of Friday night and all of Saturday in the 8,000 person range. So pretty good chunk of people to be coming into this very rural area of eastern North Carolina.
Cutscene to a completely empty church. And the mayor walks in what I'm assuming is the mayor war in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And he walks into this church and he's fanning himself and sweating. It's hot as hell. And he just sits down in the pew and just goes, "This town's never going to know what I did for their tourism. In 60 years, they'll know."
They'll have a festival.
Cutscene to Beast Fest. Maybe he was the best community planner anyone had ever known.
Hey.
And he was just masquerading as the mayor.
Right? Maybe so.
Because, I mean...
They've got one of those like historical plaques when you drive into town. It commemorates like this is their pride and joy.
Well, think about that. Again, I'm not disparaging the area, but it's like to have something that's just kind of oddball like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are interested in that shit. I bet it does wonders for the tourism.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not only that, like this thing it received the national media attention at the time, but I think it still kind of crept its way into it's not like, your top 5 cryptids you hear about, but like I actually found a cryptid coloring book that features a page on the Beast of Bladenboro that you could color in.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah. The description's little off, little more chupacabra leaning on the description.
Oh, is it more dog-like?
Yeah, it's almost like wolf looking in this thing.
When are these people going to realize chupacabra is a fucking lizard?
It says wolf-like cryptid. Sightings of the Beast of Bladenboro in North Carolina were often linked to UFO activity in the 1950s. Witnesses reported this mysterious large wolf-like predator emerging from beams of light. No, I did as much research as I could, and that was in none of it. So,
number 1, no. Number 2, fun story, but I almost sounded like walking. Number 2, fun story, but you're wrong. You're caught. It's alive, dude. That was an awful walk-in, but dude. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
You see how this shit goes? You see these patterns here? I know you see the patterns, but what I'm talking about is like the fucking vampires of Dillsboro. I bring it up a lot, but this is how this shit gets misconstrued, dude.
Mhm.
This is
Exactly.
how the mythology has we've lost control. It's just going rampant at this point.
I mean, this is just the big game of telephone here. But
Mhm.
there's one quote that I do think is kind of a fitting place to leave this, because I like ending it on more of a note of wonder as opposed to just like completely shitting on it. Because,
Oh,
like
yeah.
I said, this is such a sense of pride for the town. It's what they're really known for, and it's kind of fun to have that sense of wonder. Now, there's a member of the North Carolina Storytelling Guild, J.A. Bolton, and he says, "My personal view is that the beast still roams the swamps of Bladen County, just waiting to pounce on its next unsuspecting victim, whether human or animal." And hey, if that's the lore that old Mr. Bolton of the North Carolina Storytelling Guild wants to go with, I'll continue to follow him on that, at least to keep the story alive, if nothing else.
Well, to quote your cousin Michael Bolton, I said I loved you, but I lied, because this is more than love that I feel inside for the story of the Beast of Bladenboro. Because, brother, number one, the story that I was telling you a little bit about people seeing
Mm-hmm.
not just big cats, I'm talking legit jaguars in that area. That shit fascinates me. Again, anybody that's listening to this, you should do a little quick Google search about jaguars or big cats or panthers in North Carolina and just see how many threads pop up.
Yeah.
Because it's at least a yearly thing, and there are huge discussions about this. Again, like Dr. Captain said earlier, if there's smoke, there's fire. I think there's a little bit more to what's actually physically going on in this region than even something like this, overlook of the Beast of Bladenboro story can really expand upon. And maybe we'll get more into that at some point. But dude, I genuinely still think that this is such a fascinating thing just because of the sheer amount of reports.
Yeah. The amount of reports, the volume of reports, and then it just kind of drops off. It's
Yeah.
like this flap of beastly UADs and then nothing
Well, I mean, sure with the Beast of Bladenboro, but dude, I think the Beast
in general.
left Bladenboro, and
Yeah.
I think the Beast is everywhere. And maybe it's done by now. Maybe that's the same thing as the potential of Bigfoot. But it's funny. I woke up this morning to a text from our buddy Justin Biltonen of 3 Doors Down. He's been on the podcast before, and he was just sending me some stuff about Bigfoot. And he was like, I think they maybe went all up to Canada, like unexplored areas of Canada. And I was like, I think they left North California because of the taxes. Either way, dude, man, I have had so much fun talking about this stuff with you. I've been looking forward to this episode all week because
This is a kind of, it's cryptid adjacent, but it's really just like, I don't know. It's part of what could just be an unexplained part of biology here in North Carolina, which I guess is cryptid in itself.
I agree. I gotta say though, I'm still really, really interested in. Well, I know that there's a lot of speculation about the nature of the reports.
Yeah.
But in the event that there were actually some people that were reporting that there was blood sucked dry from these animals, and we can confirm that these individuals were not associated with this mare in any way, shape, or form,
yeah.
I'd be really, really interested to see if there were some consistent reports. Because again, that's the big head scratcher. That's the big weird, I don't know what you call that, the weird variable of the whole thing that just makes the whole thing like, what the fuck is going on?
For sure. Exactly. Because if you take that out of the equation, not really that weird of a story.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me kind of scratch my head about some of the mayor's comments. But if you leave in this whole blood sucking and the skull crushing, we can't forget that. That is.
Well, see, that's why I feel
significant.
like I think minus the blood sucking, this thing is pretty fucking weird.
True.
Because number one, even if this was a big cat that migrated from the Everglades of Florida, number one, why the hell is he up there?
Yeah.
Number two, how often do you have dog skull crushing big cats in the Everglades of Florida?
That's just going to leave their kill behind.
Yes. Anyway, all right. Well, I've got a really, really, really batshit theory, but
Cool.
I'm gonna leave that for our woo-woo side of the show, which is the midnight broadcast. And ladies and gentlemen, number one, we want to thank you so very much for joining us on another wonderful episode of Ghosts in the Mountains. This has been such a pleasure for me because I have always kind of entertained the idea that just because it isn't happening all the time, it doesn't mean that it's completely impossible for something like a giant cat to be roaming around your neighborhood. I've seen some documentaries about tigers out in the wild, and they had trail cams out for years and never saw one.
Yeah.
And that's, a quote unquote thriving population. Is not thriving, but still, might just be something in the nature of big cats. But let me just put it out to you, the listeners. If you live in Western North Carolina, or just North Carolina, or Tennessee, or somewhere around the area, and you yourself have seen a big cat, or what you would describe as one, that you just could not explain what exactly it was, please write into the show at ghostinthemountains@gmail.com. If you'd like to know more about what we're doing, please go to ghostinthemountains.com. And I really am excited to hear if somebody shoots us an email like, dude, not only have I seen one, I got some good quality pictures of it. That would be amazing. But we're going to continue this conversation on our after show, the Midnight Broadcast, which you can have access to if you are a paid subscriber to our Patreon. And we're going to get into some wild stuff. Hell, maybe we'll even talk a little bit about a guy I'm starting to call NC Cooper. Now that's a wild story.
Oh, okay.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging in there. Thank you for listening to Ghosts in the Mountains. Good night and stay spooky, everybody. So you were saying that you have heard a bobcat in the wild screaming before?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the sound. I've not.
Dude, fuck that shit. I was camping with some buds, or I was at a bachelor party actually, and we weren't camping, we're like in a cabin.
Yeah.
And we're all like, it's late as shit. We're out having a fire, drinking some beers, and we started hearing a bobcat making that sound like, dude, we were like white. We were already white, but we turned even whiter. And we're just like, what the fuck? We thought someone was being murdered.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're just like renting this fucking Airbnb, and we're out in the middle of nowhere in like Tennessee, like right over the Tennessee border. We straight thought we were hearing a murder happen. It was crazy as shit. Anyway, yeah, I hope you're never close to that. It's very, very terrifying. Sorry that one wasn't funny, but fun little side story. All right, there's your Keister egg. Hide your dogs, hide your wives. Good night, everybody.